Welcome back to Julie's Village. I'm glad you're here. In today's episode, we're going to talk about reinforcement. We're going to talk about big picture, why we have reinforcement systems and how to set them up. We'll talk more about specific reinforcement systems as they apply to specific strategies in future episodes. To start off, I just want to talk about why we would even have reinforcement systems. In a previous episode, we talked about motivators and finding out what is most motivating to your child or the children that you're working with. And using that information, you can then set up some kind of reinforcement system for them. Some people wonder, when should you reinforce and when should you not? I would say the biggest thing there is, are they willing? Is this a skill, or are you requesting something of them that they are already willing to do? If that's the case, then that intrinsic motivation is already there. And you're probably going to naturally reinforce by those verbal reinforcers, those good job, way to go. And you can just build other things in there if you want to, just to help them see that you recognize that what they did was difficult and you appreciate their effort. But you don't necessarily have to have a set reinforcement routine or system in place. If the ability is there, but the willingness is not there, that is when you would consider putting a reinforcement system in place. Or if you're trying to help teach what your expectation is, reinforcing can help, especially if you have students that are nonverbal. Providing some kind of reinforcement can help them to understand the expectation. Every time I do this, I get this thing that I really like. They must want me to do that so that I can get this thing. For instance, if you've got a student that you're trying to teach to sit down and they're nonverbal and they're running around the room, anytime they're sitting, if they are getting some kind of reinforcement for sitting, you're teaching them that your expectation is for them to sit. For students who seem to have the capability, but they don't seem to have any kind of natural intrinsic motivation, they don't want to do the thing that you're asking, that is another time that you would consider putting a reinforcement system in place. Now, sometimes we can get that backwards. We might think that they are willing, but they're not actually able. And you can see that when you've put the world's greatest reinforcement system in place and they are still not hitting the mark. That means that that mark is outside of their capability in some way. They might need more skills taught, or they might need that bar brought back just a little bit to what they are able to do so that they can maintain trust in the reinforcement system and motivation to keep working for it. If that goal is too high and it's not achievable for them, they will lose again. They'll lose belief and trust in the reinforcement system, and you'll have to rework it to get their trust back and to keep making gains. Having said that, if you're got a great reinforcement system, you know that they want it, they are trying, you see the effort, but they're just not meeting it. That again will just tell you that you've got to readjust something somewhere. But starting from the ground, the basic level, just starting a reinforcement system, usually my recommendation is to just first start out by getting the information on what motivates them. And you can watch the other episode on motivators to get some ideas on that. And then from there, the next piece of information that you want to collect is, what are they able to do right now? Where are they successful and where do you see them start to fall apart? For example, if you want them to be able to sit quietly and just have some quiet time for 10 minutes a day, you would first start by seeing, well, how long can they sit quietly? Do they need some kind of activity to do, or whatever it is? If you want that quiet sitting time, first you just see, okay, well, how long are they sitting right now before they've got to get up and move? If it's 30 seconds, then 10 minutes is too high of a starting point. You've got to take it back. And you would want to reinforce either right at that 30 seconds to start and push them to be consistent with where they're maximally capable. Or you can start just a little bit above that. Maybe, all right, right now they're sitting for 30 seconds. We're going to go for 45 before I reinforce. And then again, you'll choose a motivator from the list, and you can either communicate what you're doing and letting them know, or again, if they're nonverbal, if you're not able to do that, you might use like a clock, a visual timer, and help them to see that every time it gets to that 45, that's when they get whatever the reinforcement is. So the point of all of that is just to again say that if they are wherever they are right now, wherever they are currently successful, that is where you want to start your reinforcement, is just a little bit above that, either right there looking for more consistency or right above it. When you're creating a reinforcement system, there's a few different ways that you can reinforce. And this would be just based off of your child and what it is that you're trying to reinforce. One way that you can do it is just a random reinforcement. If this is, again, the willingness is an issue and they sometimes do it and they sometimes don't, this would be a great way to do reinforcement. At first, I would reinforce pretty frequently when they're doing what you expect. And then at other times, you can just do it at random. You can just, if you walk in and see that they're doing exactly what you want them to be doing, then you can give the reinforcement at that time. And it becomes kind of like they don't know if they're going to get it or not, so they're going to try to do what you're expecting every time in the chance that they might get the reinforcement. And that will help. That's one that you can easily fade off of if you're trying to get quickly to that intrinsic motivation. The next way that you can set up a system is having regular intervals that this reinforcement is given. So, for example, if you are looking for perhaps doing homework completion and they just don't like doing homework, you might give reinforcement for like every 5 minutes that they're doing homework. So if you're just trying to help them get through, they've got a nightly set and they are struggling to get through, they're willing to do some, but they're struggling to get through, then you could say like either every 5 problems or every 5 minutes that they have continuously worked on this homework, they're going to get more reinforcement, whether that is points or tokens or whatever it is, they're getting reinforced as they go. The next one is just completion, when they have completed whatever it is that you're expecting them to do. So the 5 problems could fit in this as well. If you've completed 5 problems, some kind of reinforcement. So right along with that, you can decide, and this again, it just is, you would determine this based off of where they're starting at and have you set, are they feeling success with the reinforcement system that you've set up. They should be pretty quickly successful within the first time or two of trying. They should be getting reinforced. If not, something is off and you need to adjust. Maybe adjusting more frequently or readjusting the type of reinforcement. You can reinforce with things like tokens, points. I would hand out tickets to some students because it gave them something tangible to hold right then and there, or seeing points on a whiteboard or a chalkboard or a piece of paper. That can work for some people. For some children, the points, the tickets, that's not enough. They want to experience something right then and now. So that might be like a small food item. Or for some, I would, after we did our 5 problems, and then we get to play a game of tic-tac-toe together, and then we do another 5 problems and play another game of tic-tac-toe. But you can have it set up too that those smaller intervals, they're getting a smaller reinforcement, but then completing the whole task, they get a bigger reinforcement. For example, if you're doing a point system, they might earn a big reinforcement at the end of the homework session, but be receiving small things like the points all along the way just to help them see, I recognize you're making progress, and look, you are getting closer to what you want. It could also be something at the end of the week. Perhaps you have a set amount of chores and they need to complete them all throughout the week, and then you'll go get a milkshake on Saturday if all of their chores were completed throughout the week. You can decide what works for you, what works for your budget, what works for um, your child, and how often they need that reinforcement and how big that reinforcement needs to be. Again, your gauge for how well this is working is just simply are they successful? Are they feeling success with this system? Are they excited about this system? If that is continuing, if they are excited about what is happening and the way that the system is going, then you've hit it right on and keep going. Now, the next piece is, again, we really want children to get to the point where they're doing basic daily things out of that intrinsic motivation. But if that intrinsic motivation isn't there, sometimes people say, well, why would I reward them or bribe them for something that they should just be doing anyway? You know that they should just be doing it anyway. I know they should just be doing it anyway, but they haven't learned that yet. They aren't feeling that inside. It feels good. This is right. I like the way it feels when I do what I know is right. And if they're not doing it yet, that tells us that piece is lacking for them. And again, you can build that piece in by first motivating intrinsic or extrinsically and providing that feedback to help them recognize the intrinsic motivation so that over time you can fade this extrinsic motivation. So again, that can happen as I referenced in the motivators episode. This can happen by helping them to intentionally pointing out the fact that they are experiencing good feelings. Either they're experiencing it because, phew, it's done and I don't have to do it anymore, I don't have to worry about it anymore, or perhaps those good feelings are coming from, that was hard and I did it. Whatever it is, as you're talking to your child, you can kind of get a sense of what is also intrinsically motivating for them by just asking them, how do you feel? You got it done. Are you just glad it's done, or are you proud of yourself for what you did? And as they describe that to you, you can then have a better idea of what you could talk to them about after they've done whatever it is that you're expecting them to do. Then, the way that you can fade reinforcement is first you just move that bar back. You just keep raising it higher and higher in order for them to get the reinforcement. But along with that, you might need to up the reinforcement a little bit. For example, with that, just sitting, learning how to sit quietly for a few minutes. If they started at 30 seconds and you had it at 45 and now they're consistently successful at 45, now you're ready to build it up to 6 minutes or to 60 seconds, sorry, not 6 minutes. And at that 60-second point, you might say, okay, you got 1 point for making it to the 45. Now you're not going to get any points at 45, but if you make it to 60, you get 2 points. And so you've upped what the expectation is, but then you've also upped the carrot just a little bit to help it to be something that they still want to work towards. And as you do that, as you increase the amount that you're expecting, but you're also in some way increasing what they can get for it. Then after a while, it becomes something like 45 seconds is no big deal. You're no longer reinforcing at 45 seconds. And eventually it will get to the point where 10 minutes is no big deal to them, and you no longer need to reinforce 10 minutes. But then you might be working towards the next thing that you want them to do. so that they don't feel like there's just an emptiness. So for example, if you reinforced all the way up to 10 minutes, 10 minutes is no longer a big deal. You might intentionally have a conversation with them about, you made it to 10 minutes and it's so easy for you now, but now it's time to shift over and we need to work on how things are going with cleaning your room. So even though it's a completely different area, you're still helping them to know that it's all about helping them to improve and to be the person that they want to be, can help them to feel good and to keep going, and help you to feel like you are constantly helping them to make progress as well. If there are additional things that you would like to learn about reinforcement, I invite you to leave that in the comments. I would love to hear if you have any experiences with reinforcement that you have seen be really successful, or if you have any just great ideas or insights to share with others, please leave that in the comments. If there are other topics that you would like to see covered, or other people that you would like to see come on this channel, I invite you to also leave that in the comments. And if this has been helpful for you and you feel like it would be helpful for others, I invite you to like, share, subscribe so that we can keep getting the word out there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.